Dinosaurs. We've all heard of them. And let's be honest, at one point in your childhood, you've probably had a plastic toy of one sitting in your bedroom floor. We are taught from a very young age that these prehistoric animals ruled the exact same rock way before humans ever spoke a single word. But when you really think about it, we are just now digging up their skeletal remains from the dirt, brushing off millions of years of crusty mud and trying to paint a clear picture of an entire world we never witnessed. I've always wondered though, are dinosaurs actually the way Hollywood blockbusters and museum exhibits make them out to be? Or is the reality completely different? Could it be that the terrifying monsters we see on our screens are practically made up from the active imaginations of paleontologists? Let's think about it for a second. If you walked into a natural history museum and looked up a massive towering Dinosaurus Rex, you'd initially think that what you're looking at is the real, authentic prehistoric bones dug straight out of Earth. But unfortunately, you would have been lied to. Almost every single skeleton on display in a major museum is made out of fiberglass, plaster, or resin. They are simply cast models. The real bones are locked away in high-security basement vaults, hidden behind thick steel doors where the public will never see them. Now, the official scientific reason for that is that the real fossilized bones are far too heavy, brittle, and too precious to hang from steel wires. A single fossilized leg bone can weigh several hundred pounds because it has literally been turned into solid rock over millions of years. If you hang that from a ceiling, you are one loose bolt away from a major workplace accident. But if the skeletons on display are replicas and the real evidence is locked in a basement, how do we actually know that the people drawing these creatures are not just making it all up? Think about the stakes here. For over 200 years, a relatively small group of scientists has told humanity exactly what lived on this planet before us. They have created an entire multi-billion-dollar industry of movies, theme parks, and textbooks based entirely on fragments of stone. To understand why it is so easy to suspect that paleontologists are just making things up as they go, we have to look at their massive blind spot at the very center of their work. They are trying to build a living, breathing creature using nothing but a pile of old bones. And to see just how easily bones can lie to your face, we need to leave the prehistoric world behind for a minute and look at the animal that is very much alive today, the hippopotamus. Imagine you are an alien scientist who arrives on a desolate, future Earth a million years after humans and hippos have gone extinct. You are digging around in the dried up mud of what used to be East Africa, and you pull out a perfect hippopotamus skeleton. Let us look at what you're working with. The skull is incredibly dangerous. It features massive, curved, spear-like teeth and ivory tusks that look like they were designed specifically to attack prey. The jaw mechanism is heavy-duty and can snap shut with thousands of pounds of pressure. The skeletal frame is dense, low to the ground, and looks very aggressive. If you followed the traditional rules of older paleontology, you would look at this skeleton and reconstruct an absolute monster. You would draw a lean, fast, terrifying reptilian apex predator, a land crocodile with skin stretched tight against the muscle, sprinting across the plains to hunt down other animals. You would never in your wildest dreams look at that skull and reconstruct a 3-ton, bloated, pink, water-loving animal that is covered in thick, jiggly blubber. The bone completely hides the true reality of the living animal. This is what scientists call the shrink-wrap trap, and it is the exact reason why Hollywood might have completely lied to us about what the dinosaurs actually look like. For nearly a century, the artistic standard for drawing dinosaurs was to take the skeleton and drape skin directly over the bone. It was an unspoken rule that if an animal had a bone, you had to see the shape of the bone through its skin. But if you look at any animal alive today, you quickly realize that biology is naturally soft and covered in fat. Real animals are made of massive fat deposits, cartilage, muscle layers, air sacs and loose skin, none of which survived the fossilization process. You see, every time we look at a classic illustration of a dinosaur, we are technically not looking at a definitive historical fact. We are looking at the bare minimum. We're looking at a scaffold and we're trying to guess the upholstery. So if the bones themselves are inherently deceptive, how did the paleontologists get so confident? How did they convince the world that their version of these monsters was the absolute truth? The truth is, early paleontology did not establish itself through careful, cautious and objective science. It established itself through a chaotic 19th century street fight known to historians as the Bone Wars. And when you see how the foundational species of this science were discovered, you start to realize why the line between fact and fiction got so incredibly blurry. Meet Edward Drinker Cope and Othniel Charles Marsh. These were two incredibly wealthy, highly intelligent and deeply petty men who dominated American paleontology in the late 1800s. At first, they were friends. They even named species after each other, but very quickly their relationship devolved into a toxic rivalry that turned the American West into a literal battlefield. This was not a polite debate, this was a war in the dirt. Both men hired armed guards to protect their dig sites. They paid their crews to spy on each other. They even intercepted and stole crates of fossils from train stations. But it actually gets worse. When one of them finished digging up a site, they didn't just pack up neatly and leave. They ordered their crew members to literally use dynamites to blow up the remaining fossil beds, intentionally destroying millions of years of irreplaceable prehistoric data just to ensure that the other guy could not get his hands on the leftovers. In this frantic, paranoid, ego-driven race to publish more species than the other, scientific accuracy went completely out of the window. They were so desperate to be the first that they started inventing animals out of thin air, rushing unverified drawings to the publishers just to score points. In 1868, Cope was in such a hurry to humiliate Marsh with a new discovery that he reconstructed in marine reptile called Elamosaurus, with its head slapped onto the very tip of its tail. Marsh noticed the mistake, publicly embarrassed Cope in front of the scientific community, and Cope never forgave him. A few years later, Marsh fired back with a blunder that would deceive the world for generations. He discovered a massive, long-necked skeleton, but it was missing a skull. Desperate to outdo Cope's publication numbers, Marsh took the skull of a completely different animal, a Camarasaurus, and mounted it onto the body of an Apatosaurus. He published it as a brand new, majestic species, the Brontosaurus. Straight after that, the Brontosaurus became an international sensation. It was put into children's books, stamped onto postage stamps, and even featured in the earliest monster movies. Millions of children grew up loving this gentle giant. But it was a total lie. The Brontosaurus was a corporate Frankenstein, a scientific phantom born out of a Victorian grudge match. It took paleontology over 100 years to officially fix the mistake and admit that the Brontosaurus, as we knew it, never actually existed as a real, single animal. If two of the founding fathers of this entire science were willing to blow up fossil beds, lie to the public, and mismatch skulls just to win a petty trophy, what else did they get wrong? How much of our settled prehistoric history is just a legacy of academic sabotage? Geologists estimate that over 4 billion species have evolved on this planet over the last few billion years. Out of that staggering number, we have managed to find, name and catalogue about 1.5 million species. So let's do the math on that. That means at least 99% of all life that has ever existed on Earth has been utterly and completely deleted. They are lost to the history and they left no bone and no footprint. They are gone as if they never existed at all. We obsess over the T-Rex and the Triceratops not because they were the only dominant animals of their time, but because they happened to live and die in coastal floodplains and river deltas where the mud was perfect for making fossils. They are not famous because they were special, they are famous because they died in the right neighborhood. So what is the final verdict? Are paleontologists simply lying to us? Well, the truth is subtle, and it's far more fascinating than a simple conspiracy theory. Paleontologists did not lie about the existence of the dinosaurs because the stones are real, the chemistry is real, the physics of these massive creatures can be tested and proven. But for over a century, paleontology did lie to us about their identity. They looked at these magnificent, highly evolved biological masterpieces and forced them into a box labeled monsters. They drew them as sluggish, cold-blooded, scaly lizard demons because that is what Victorian society wanted to see. They projected their own cultural fears and Hollywood creative imaginations onto the silent stones of the earth. But as the science has matured, the monsters have faded away. In their place, we are discovering a vibrant, active, intelligent world that we are only just beginning to truly understand. We are starting to see them not as evolutionary failures that deserve to die, but as the most successful biological experiment in the history of our planet. The final twist is that the bone wars never ended because the subjects never truly died. The next time you see a sparrow on a fence or a pigeon in the street, look at its eyes. You aren't looking at a descendant, you are looking at a survivor. The lineage didn't break, it just pivoted. Evolution didn't discard the dinosaur, it just compressed it. We used to call them dragons, now we call them birds, but the bones under the earth is still holding the truth. We are just the latest tenants in a house that was built by the giants. And the giants, well, they never left. They are just waiting for our turn to end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the realm of dinosaurs, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this. Let us know in the comment section whether you believe the lies paleontologists have told us about these creatures.